Well, a very good evening and welcome back to NewsCentre. Now, Bill Gates, Tim Cook, Satya Nadella, Sundar Pichai, Sam Altman, American tech titans that have all visited India over the last 6 months. Tech is clearly in focus, as is quite visible from Prime Minister Modi's state visit to the US as well. But what does the focus on tech mean for cybersecurity concerns? What does this visit to the US mean for cybersecurity in India? To discuss this further, I have with me Sean Duca. He's the VP and Regional CSO for Asia and Pacific, as well as Japan for Palo, Alto Networks. Mr. Duca, thank you so much for joining us. It's always a pleasure having you, hosting you here on CNBC-TV18. Let me ask you the first question. There's a lot of excitement, there's a lot of anticipation, a lot of energy with the Indian Prime Minister's first state visit to the US. That again raises questions that when we look at it from the lens of cybersecurity, what does that mean in terms of takeaways for India? What can India walk away with from this US state visit?
Well, thank you for having me back. But what this really means for India is the fact that we're really seeing greater collaboration between different nations. And if you think about what we're trying to focus on, it's really around cybercrime, which is a borderless crime. And at the end of the day, we really do need to focus on greater collaboration between different countries, whether it be from a policy, regulatory standpoint, or even just simply learnings and understanding of what does the threat look like if organizations or industries are being targeted in one part of the world. How do we learn from that and apply some of those learnings here in India? And at the same time, how do we apply what we've seen happen locally in India to other parts of the world as well?
Great. Let me then ask you a follow-up question. We've had 6 tech titans from the US visit India, whether that's Bill Gates, Tim Cook, Satya Nadella, Sundar Pichai. They all visited here. They've taken this conversation on digitization, on tech forward. But when we talk of tech deployment, when we talk of tech adoption, what does that do? What does this digitization do to cybersecurity concerns from your perspective?
Digitalization is a constant, and it's something that's been happening for many, many years now, and will continue, no doubt, for many, many years to come. I think as we start to move and embark on digitizing a lot more of our services, a lot more of our data, and a lot more of our lives really connected online and businesses in turn, what that really means from a cybersecurity standpoint is that line has really sort of been drawn to say, let's now think about a different way to try and tackle these cybersecurity challenges. With the escalating rise of cybercrime activity that we're seeing around the globe, we have to think about different measures to try and stop these attackers from launching their attacks against our critical industries, at the same time against the people of our nations. So in order for us to achieve that, we have to think differently. And it's that mantra of do different, because trying to achieve the same outcome but not really change anything is not really going to help anyone really sort of achieve those goals.
Sure. Let's talk about some of those concerns here, especially with respect to some of the recent instances of these cyber attacks that we've seen, whether that's the Ames ransomware attack that was reported about.
Correct.
We've also had very recently WhatsApp scams being generated from countries, from numbers from different countries. We've also had recent reports of sensitive data about Cowen being leaked on Telegram. With these concerns in mind, what should be the primary focus of the authorities, of the entities managing the data?
From an authority standpoint, we should really be thinking about, one, raising education and awareness to ensure that it's that constant drumbeat. We need to make sure that organizations and, I guess, government entities are really thinking about how do we raise the awareness? Because this is something that's always going on. And if one scam will always end up looking like something else that we've seen in the past, scammers will always try and just find different ways and techniques to try and dupe people to really share, divulge sensitive information. The second part is really around the fact that we are dealing with an automated adversary. So for government organizations and entities, they need to be collecting vast amounts of data, but really focus and honing in the type of data that they collect around what does the attack look like? How does the attacker actually morph? What techniques are actually being used? And really sort of start to use that data and then turn that into a way that we can orchestrate and automate our defenses. And whether that be at a nation level, whether it be at an industry or industrial level, we need to think about how do we start to do this. And the only true way that we can achieve that is by leveraging automation at greater speed to achieve that. And this is where you're seeing artificial intelligence, machine learning really being leveraged. And from a Palo network standpoint, something that we've been leveraging for more than 10 years now to really try and combat and fight cyber criminals around the world.
I think I'll take a cue from that, the word automation. You've almost preempted my next question. The question I wanted to ask is that now we have various AI tools available. We've seen various use cases by anti-social actors. We've seen instances of deep fake as well. So while on one hand you talk of how companies, cybersecurity firms such as Palo, Alto are gearing themselves using automation, the anti-social actors on the internet are also doing the same, arming themselves with AI tools. Is that a concern that we need to look at when we go forward? That AI, one of the takeaways could be more tools in the hands of anti-social actors?
I think with any tool that's ever come out that's really disruptive in nature and transformative in nature, there's always going to be someone that's looking to leverage that for nefarious reasons and activities. So we always need to be mindful and cognizant of that. You know, there are risks and challenges with any type of tool. So there's always going to be someone that's always going to be looking to do something bad with it. So we always should be mindful about what they're actually doing. But at the same time, how do we actually use that for our own greater good? How do we ensure that we're putting it in the hands of organizations and government entities to really think about, well, how do we get the benefit out of it? Because in the end, the artificial intelligence and those large learning models that we're seeing out there, and even the proprietary models that we're using internally at Palo Networks, really help us achieve a way that we can start to identify the anomalous, the net new threats that have never been seen before that are targeting individuals and organizations around the globe. Because the moment we see that, we can then start to share that information and collaborate with other organizations or entities or even different types of countries around the world as well. And that's something that I think we need to keep on fostering. That sharing of threat intelligence is where we're really going to start to achieve critical mass and stopping some of these cybercrime activities from taking place.
Sure, Mr. Duca. My one final question to you, we're running out of time, but I'll just ask one more question, that at a time when there is a greater understanding of these risks involved on the cyberspace, do you see that the pace of that recognition is perhaps slower in government or public-related entities as compared to the private sector? Is that something that you've seen?
I don't think it's really a case of slower in one side or the other. I think it's more a case of, you know, with the rise of artificial intelligence, and this is something that's been happening for some time, I think it's probably taken a lot of people a little bit back in terms of trying to work out how should we try and really ensure that we are doing and leveraging it in the right way. You know, how do we ensure that we're not doing something incorrect here? And I think this is where you're seeing a lot of countries around the world that are starting to look to foster, you know, regulations around how to ensure that they're doing this correctly. You're hearing it from people that are in the industry themselves saying, you know, we do need to find some other way to really try and control and foster safe innovation around all of this. Because there's no point releasing some piece of technology and not thinking about what could the world look like tomorrow if it fell in the hands of an adversary of ours. So I think it's making sure that we're all connected, both at a public and private sector, and communicating and working out what could we do and what could we do best.
Sure, Mr. Duca. Thank you so much once again for joining us and sharing your thoughts and perspective. But that, unfortunately, is all the time that we have. It's a wrap on this edition of News Centre. More news and updates continue right here on CNBC-TV18.